Well, hello, everybody. Wow. Well, I'd like to start by saying, Payal, thank you for inviting me today, and thanking Startup Grind. I want to start off by telling you a little founder story of my own. I'll keep it short. So, and I've been a founder for many years myself. I just recently joined Trinity Ventures after going through their EIR program. And what really informed me about my decision to invest in Payal exactly 5 years ago today, we found that out by time hop, by the way, was that a really amazing gentleman actually invested in me. His name is Jimmy Iovine. For those of you that don't know him, he's the founder of Interscope Records and Beats by Dre, which sold to Apple for $3 billion. So he's a pretty significant entrepreneur himself. And he made this comment to me after he'd written me a really significant check. And he said, Anjula, I love you and you're great, but I just want to tell you that I don't think Desi Hits is going to work. And I was like, what? You just gave me all this money? And he said, yeah, well, my view on investing is this. He said, to me, you're talent, and you're no different to me than Eminem or Gwen Stefani, which was really nice to hear, by the way, or any major artist that I've signed, because I don't sign people for singles, I sign them for albums. And even though I don't feel like this company is going to be your rock star company, I don't doubt for a second that your next company will be, or your company after that. So it was all about the pivot, it was all about developing artists, it was all about developing entrepreneurs. So 5 years ago, when Payal walked into my office, she didn't have a plan, she had an idea, and I just said to her, you know what, I see something in you, and I see talent, and actually, after that, I've been managing a lot of talent. And I just thought she was this internal rock star, and I just knew that she needed a platform to really shine, and I wanted to give her that. So that's how we sort of first got together. Anyway, I'm going to come over to you, Payal. Such a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you.
So, I don't know if you guys know, but outside of Classpass, Payal is actually one of the top 5 dancers in the country for Indian dance. She's actually an incredible dancer. And I knew her through that world. I knew her through the amazing stuff she does on stage. So tell us, Payal, about that journey from being a dancer and being a really significant dancer and moving into being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I want to underscore, when I walked into that office 5 years ago, I was scared because I've always looked up to Ange my entire life. There's not many people in the world who have people like, Britney Spears, Lady Gaga, that come to her to manage their entire careers. And she gave me advice actually that day, and I'll tell you guys a little bit about the journey, but my journey started a while ago. My parents came from India in the 70s. The number one thing they wanted me to do was get a good education. They wanted me to have a stable career. So I went to MIT, I worked at Bain, but I had this deep passion in my life for Indian dance, and I started dancing when I was 3. And I didn't know how to fit both things into my life, but I fought to do that. At MIT, I made sure I was dancing all the time. At Bain, I made sure I was dancing. But at some point, I just realized I had to do more with it. And so when I quit Bain, I went to Warner Music Group because I wanted to be able to dance more. And most people would never really admit that, but I had to find a way for it to stay in my life. And that was actually the time when I met Ange here, and I think she saw that I had this talent, but I didn't know what to exactly do it and put it forth into. And I quit Warner Music Group. One of my friends told me not to have a plan B, and I really stuck to that. And I spent a month, I quit, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I was going to go work at Spotify, potentially. I had this idea of Classtivity sort of brewing at the time, which was the first iteration of Classpass. And I didn't know, and I walked into Ange's office, and she goes, if you take another job, I would never invest in you. And it actually, really lit me up. I mean, I think that night, and Ange can tell you the story, I went to a dinner that night. I couldn't stop thinking about building this company. And that was exactly 5 years ago from today. And by 2 a.m. that night, Ange had a business plan for me because I didn't have one when I met with her. And I was just like, this is what I have to pour my heart and soul into. And that's where the journey started.
I mean, it was amazing. Literally, she came into my office on a Friday afternoon, and I said what I said, which I didn't know would change her life. And I was saying to somebody today, you have to be really careful what you say to people because it could change their lives. And I had no idea. But literally, I remember it was a Saturday night at 2 a.m. I was still up, and I get this business plan from her, and I'm like, God, she means business, this girl. And then literally, I was like, I remember pinging you back, just going, okay, come into my office on Monday. And then on the Monday, I was like, wow, I can't believe you put this amazing business plan together. And I was like, there are 2 desks. I said, where are you going to work? And you said, oh, from Starbucks. And we had this kind of crazy penthouse in New York that I don't even know how we landed at a startup, by the way. It was just charm, I think. But Payal ended up taking a piece of my office, and a year later, you took the whole office, right? I moved to LA, and she took the whole office. Yep. But so Payal, through the journey of Classpass, I was there for the very early part. For the first year, Payal kind of incubated in Desi Hits, which was my startup. I see, and going back to the whole element of albums and not singles, I feel like you had a bunch of singles which weren't right. And one was called Dabble, and one was called Classtivity. Tell us about that journey of pivot, because one of the things for me was I didn't know if the business that she first presented to me was going to work, but I knew she was going to work. And I really wanted to develop her as an entrepreneur. So tell us about that phase.
Yeah, I think for me from the beginning, I was always driven by my mission of the company, of creating change in the world and getting people to actually go to classes. And in the first few iterations of the product, we had 100 reservations total on our first product, and we've now done 15 million with the current version. So when I think about that difference, if I wasn't getting people to class, I was not actually fulfilling my mission. So when the first version of the product, which was a search engine, didn't work, it was a really hard day. I had to walk into the office and tell everyone we were going to throw away the code, right? We were going to switch gears, and it was a hard moment, but I think we all rallied against the fact that we were going to move closer to our vision. Sometimes failing is great because it gives you a data point of which direction to not go into, and that's exactly what we learned, and we kept doing that, right? It's sort of a muscle I learned to keep failing, if that makes sense, so I could figure it out, and I just had more perseverance in saying, you know what, I'm just going to keep putting new products out there. And eventually, we started seeing the traction. We started seeing people go to class. We started seeing people fall in love with the product. And that's when we knew we had really hit something.
Yeah, I remember all the ups and downs. And it was like an emotional roller coaster. But you just never gave up. And you were just so driven by it constantly. It was awesome. So one of the things that I always talk about is, I've worked with artists for many years now, and Payal mentioned some of the people that I've worked with, and the parallels I always sort of draw between artists and startups or brands, and you think of brands like Virgin or fans that really build fans and not customers. I think you've done, for everybody I know that loves Classpass, they're like a fan. So I think you've done what artists succeed in doing, is building fans. So how do you think, what made you different? Like, how do you think you did that?
A brand is a feeling, right, at the end of the day. And the same way I think music makes you feel something, so does a product. And to me, I really wanted Classpass to make people feel happy, right? To make them feel like they could say yes to doing new things. And I think that's built into everything, every decision we make about our customer experience. Early on, I read every customer service email. I responded to a lot of them under another name, but that's okay. But that was what you had to do. I had to get a pulse and really empathize with the end customer and really understand what they wanted. And so much of that is really what I think is now reflected in our brand. It's our product. Like, your product is everything. As an entrepreneur and founder, the number one thing that you have is you can't create a brand. Like, you can't fake a brand. You have to actually create something that's magical, that touches people's lives, and that's really what we always focused on.
Yeah. So in terms of like customers, do you feel like there's a distinction between, because you probably have some customers and then you have a lot of fans. Do you think is there a performance behavior in them that's different? Do you see anything different between the two sets of people?
What I love is I meet a lot of people who are like, oh my God, I love Classpass. And I go, when did you join? And they go, I haven't joined yet. And I'm always like, okay. And so I've realized that people have, whether it's their friends who've talked about it and shared the stories of how the product has changed their life. I take that as, wow, someone felt good about it and told you about it, and that same brand effect is there, and I think that's magical. Obviously, I want them to use the product too. But I think it's just amazing when you have realized that your brand is even bigger than just your current users on the platform.
And you sent me a video the other day, which I haven't actually watched, but I'm going to reference it, around some fans that had done some videos which were really high quality. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, I think people have Classpass is a way of life. And I think it's really, for most people, they want to talk about it. They want to share stories about it. And so two girls in LA put together a web series on how Classpass has sort of taken over their lives and how, their day-to-day has changed because of it. They wake up early because of it. They when they're out at a party, they're like, have you booked your class yet? So I think it's cool that, it's really actually become a part of their daily life.
I've got a friend, I'm going to shout her out. She's probably not watching, but her name's Rebecca. She's like an anchor on Fox and Today Show, and she said that Classpass has changed her life so much that she now doesn't have dinners anymore. So she tells people, everybody wants to meet with her because she's on TV. So she says, if you want to meet with me, you have to join Classpass, and I'll meet you for a class, and then we can go and have green tea afterwards. Like, it's changed her life that much. And I'm like, I love you. Keep going. So, okay, as two women sitting up here, we have to address, because everybody keeps telling us we have to address it, we have to talk about what it's like to be a woman in tech, what it's like to be a female founder. We've both gone through the journey of raising money. We've both gone through the journey of building our companies. But how's your journey been?
This is a topic I'm really passionate about. And I think one of the biggest things I have learned is to make it a non-issue. It's really, I don't want being a woman or, not to really define me. I really want to be known for the work I do. And, I think Taylor Swift put it really well, at the Grammys when she said, it's about the work you do, right? At the end of the day, that's how you make a change in people's lives, and that's how people really will look at you in a different way. And I think I've learned that over time. In the beginning, I think I did sometimes let it get to me, and I wondered if that was an issue. And over time, I just realized, no, I'm not gonna let this define me. I'm also I'm 4'11", I didn't ever let that stand in my way. And I think those are the things you just have to work through them, and if anything, own it, right? Like I think a lot of my consumers are female, so I can empathize with them in a totally different way, and if anything, that's going to play to the strengths of being a female.
Yeah, well, as Brittany says, you got to work, bitch. I mean, as a female founder myself, I didn't, one of the things that I say to other female founders that I work with, whether it's Payal or, a whole bunch of women that I've actually funded myself, I always say that when I was fundraising, and this is like, I've fundraised through, some crazy times, by the way, there wasn't all the kind of negative rhetoric in the press that there is now. And, of course, we have to make people aware of what's going on, and we have to know what the stats are. But very honestly, because there wasn't all of that sort of all those articles in the press talking about how difficult it is for women, I didn't even think about it. So I went out and I fundraised, and I didn't even think about how difficult it was going to be. I didn't think that people would see me differently. And I definitely, I was a minority, I was a woman, I didn't even come, as you can tell from my accent, I didn't come from here, I didn't go to an Ivy League school, I wasn't a founder prior to that. And I actually, just sailed through it. So often my advice to women is, please don't read all this stuff, because I actually think it puts you into a negative frame rather than a positive frame. And that's just something I don't think that helps you, sadly. But do you think, how do you feel about, all of the articles that are written in the press about women in fundraising? Do you think they're helpful, or do you think?
Look, I do think there are inherent problems with just, when I do recruiting, for example, there are, especially at a senior level, I get less resumes of females than I do of males, right? Those are just inherently in there, and those are things I think we all have to work on fixing. It's just the fact that there needs to be, it'd be great to have more females in the VC world, et cetera, right? That's just something I think the industry has to change. But what I would tell any founder or any female is, don't let that be a constraint if you're a female. Work it to your advantage, right? Make yourself the best you can be by being yourself. I've learned this too, lead from a genuine place and be yourself in every meeting you're in everything that you do for your product, and that's what's going to really speak huge volumes on your work and what you're doing more than anything else that you do.
Okay, so going back to Classpass, I've seen you go through this journey of starting at 100 reservations to now, 15 million? How do you do that? How do you really do that? Give us some really practical stuff that people can go away with and go, okay, these are things that I need to do to build a massive consumer company like that.
The first thing I will say is 15 million, in my mind, I'm we're gonna do so much more, right? I think as a dreamer, I'm not anywhere close to being done yet, and that's what gets you up in the morning every single day. And to be honest, when I had my first reservation, I felt excited, and it's the same way I feel at the 15 millionth one, because it's still someone's life changed. And to be honest, like I inherently get up every day, love this company because of what it does for people. And that's really what gets you through it. That's what makes every day amazing. Every pivot you do, just feel like the world is yours, is because I wake up every day and I get to help people. And I get to spend all my time doing something I love. And what better way is there to live life?
And yours is a journey of perseverance. Like, one of the things that I really saw in Payal was her perseverance. I mean, I remember coming to New York, Payal, I don't know if you remember this, and things weren't good. Like, things were really tough. You were really challenged. Like, I came into your office and you were kind of, I actually really thought at that point you might give up, because truthfully, I think at that point anybody else would have given up. But you didn't. And then you had the perseverance. And then I remember sitting in my car in LA. I remember just being outside a meeting, and I had my little BlackBerry then. And I saw this little snapshot that you sent me of this little graph, and it had this hockey stick that went like that. And I always kept telling Payal that she was going to nail it. She was going to figure it out. I mean, that was the one thing I always said to you, like, I know you're going to figure it out. You've got all of these users, and you've got these vendors, and you'll figure out the model. And you obviously kept pivoting the model. But yeah, I remember getting that screenshot and just being like, holy shit, she figured it out. And so tell us about the perseverance, because this was like 5 years ago I met this girl and she walked into my office. Like, this wasn't an easy journey, and it's really easy to give up. So, for all those founders out there, and I've been through it too, that are just going through those moments of like panic and weakness and wanting to give up,
yeah.
What advice would you give to them?
I'm a problem solver by nature. I think that's like what I learned throughout my life, and I never try and get caught up in the worry. I try and get focused on the fix, and it's always about moving forward, and that gives you energy, gives your team energy. Every single time I felt like we were in a problem, I knew I had to go call somebody, an advisor, go take action to get through it versus get stuck. Getting stuck is the worst thing you can do, feeling like you're not moving forward. And yeah, in the beginning it was harder to do that. You have more fear in doing that. I learned to surround myself with the right people who, whenever I felt like I was in a jam, I knew I had to call them. I knew they would say to me, like, Payal, you can figure this out.
So just to stop you there, tell us, because I always say this to founders all the time. I'm like, have you got an advisory board? And often they say, no, I don't have an advisory board. And I say, well, you need to get one. You need to get, I think it gives you credibility when you're fundraising later, right? If you have people that are in your industry and know it, and you can sort of brag about your advisory board. But B, just that you're not a lone entrepreneur sitting there dying, and you've got people that you really trust. So can you tell us like some of the profiles of the people that you had that you went to, and kind of what roles they played? Because I think you had a collection of people that were different.
Yeah, a lot of it is, they're your personal team, right? Like, you have your team working on your product, and then you have to wake up every day being like, I can do this. And you need to surround yourself by these people who are seriously like your cheerleaders, who understand how you work. When you call them, they're able to be like, okay, we're gonna work through this problem, or at least by the end of the phone call. That was one of my biggest things, is if I called you, I hope by the end of the phone call that I knew what I was going to do, right? You don't wanna just talk for hours without getting to an answer. So I had a whole range of people. One of the companies, obviously, when I built Classpass, that I really looked up to was ZocDoc. So Cyrus from ZocDoc was one of the advisors. I seeked him out. And this is sort of, to talk about hustle. I was like, I want to meet Cyrus by this Friday. It was Wednesday. I sent about 18 emails, and by Friday, I had a meeting with him. And when he met me, he was like, I don't know who you are, but I got about 5 emails about you, so I need to meet you. And I think even for him, I think he was even like, I'll become an advisor to you, let me get to know you. I kept him in the loop. I think that's the other thing. I may have not seen traction with the company. We may have not been doing all of our reservations yet, but I kept him in the loop. I kept sending him updates, and he kept seeing the progress. Progress is key. Keep moving forward. Don't get stuck, because that's like the death of any company, is when you don't move forward. And I would just tell anyone, like, figure out when you're stuck how you're going to get through that problem and get to the other end of it.
And just tell us about some of the other people, because I think you had some amazing people around.
Yeah,
you.
well, Ange here. Andrew Weinrich, who runs a bunch of boot camps in New York City, has been amazing to the beginning of the company. One of our first lawyers, Alexei, he's been amazing in building like our company, helping us fundraise. Fritz Landman, who's actually our executive chairman. People like him and David Tisch. these people helped me from the beginning. Like anytime I had an issue, I could send them an email, they would send me an email back within minutes, just being like, here's how I'm gonna help you, here's a person I'm gonna connect you to, and I think I'm so grateful to those people, and I would say seek those people out early, and 5 years later, they're all still very much involved in the company.
And what do you think the magic is in attracting them? Because when you started, I mean, I know what the magic was for me, but when you started 5 years ago, you didn't really have much, and there's going to be lots of founders out here that don't really have very much, but they need to attract those people to help them fundraise, to help them build their product, to help them understand the market. How do you attract them? I think you have a certain magic about you, but is there anything else that you can
I mean, I don't know how to exactly talk about that, but I do think in the beginning it's all about people, right? I think I've always been a dreamer my entire life, and I showed them that, and actually a lot of the times I would make them come to my dance performances, because I think whenever anyone saw me dance, they'd be like, oh my God, this girl is like, has something in her head, and they knew I'd put all the hard work into it to make sure I created something, and it's discipline, and I even think I learned that as a dancer when I was 4 years old, when someone was like, you need to learn that step by tomorrow. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna work on this all night until I have it, and that's the same hustle I have now.
I love it. So we're coming to the end now. We started off about albums and singles. So to me, you had Dabble, which was your first single. Didn't really work. Radio didn't like it. Second single, which was Classivity, and again, people weren't really feeling it in the clubs. And then you had your third single, which was Classpass, and man, people are feeling that one. So have we got our album now, or do you think there's something more? Like, what do you feel?
There's always something more. I mean, our vision is to make every life fully lived, and there's a lot in that. Like Classpass, yes, we've, I think, done a great job in getting people to go to fitness classes. I think for us, we want to be about all types of experiences. How are we going to get people to go to concerts, right? How are we going to get people to go to that massage that they didn't know was happening around the street, right? There's different experiences in people's lives that we want people to engage in, from music lessons, right? Cooking, art. We want people's lives full of these experiences, and I think Classpass is going to be a part of it, so I'm not done.
I love that. And also, I just want you to tell people about the entrepreneurs that you've helped, through Classpass, and people that built amazing businesses.
Yeah, I think, one of the most amazing things about Classpass is our members are really even our teachers, right? I think that's what gives me so much happiness every single day, is we're creating people in the world who want to then share the craft that they're learning. So a lot of members on Classpass are becoming yoga instructors, and then yoga instructors are able to build their businesses on Classpass and get clientele. And I think it's been amazing helping all these entrepreneurs who quit their jobs to say, I want to go help people's lives and teach them, every single day, and give up my normal career, whether it was banking or whatever it might be, to help people have an hour of their day where they're spending with that mind-body connection. And so many people have done that, and Classpass has really helped their businesses be successful.
Okay, we got to end now, but it's on red. Any final thoughts, anything you want to share with sort of particularly women entrepreneurs that are out there? I mean,
just, be yourself and dream. Don't ever, I always say that, there's always time to dream in your day. And if you feel like you're not dreaming, you're the person who has to go and find that time to dream. I will go for a run every morning just so I can dream again. And I think that's so important, is never lose that as a human being. You should always be dreaming about what your life can be.
Thank you, Payal.
Thank you. Thanks.